Hello everybody, my name's Andy. Welcome to my channel, Andy Juggles Languages. In this video I want to talk about fluency and what fluency is. So what inspired me to make this video is that I've been working in another shop recently. For those who don't know, I'm a shop manager and I covered a different shop for a period of time for about 2 to 3 weeks because the other manager was off at the time and I just stepped in. The shop isn't that far from my own shop, it's a few miles away, so we do get some customers who I'm familiar with, and there are some customers I don't yet know. So I had an experience whereby I spoke 5 languages, one after the other, without going back to English. And I spoke French, Spanish, Italian, Polish and Mandarin, not in that order I don't think, but I remember it being those 5 languages. And the Polish, Mandarin and Spanish was with customers I already know, and I usually speak those languages with those customers anyway, because the Polish customers don't speak any English, so that's something that I have to do. And the Spanish one was with a lady who's Romanian who doesn't speak any English as well. So I did all that, and then the French side of it was that a Frenchman was giving us a donation of goods, and he signed up to Gift Aid, and I just heard him speaking and I thought that he sounds like he's got a French accent, so I just asked, "Are you French?" in French, and he said yes, and we just carried on talking, and his wife came over because she's British and she wanted to practice her French and start up a group in locally to where I live for practicing French. So we did all that, which was fantastic. And then the Italian was with a Romanian lady who can speak English, but she just loves speaking Italian because she lived there and she just loves that language. So I did all that, and then the following week I went to work in the same shop, and I heard one of the volunteers telling somebody else that I was fluent in about 10 languages, which made me feel a bit, I felt it was kind of, I cringed. I felt a bit strange about that because I've never considered myself fluent in any language other than English, and even then, I mean, there are so many words and terms that I don't know in English. I mean, for example, when I started doing my Open University degree, I did a social sciences course and I learned the word hegemony, and I'd never come across that word before, and I learned what it meant, and now I've forgotten what it means actually, so I need to look that up again. Or do I? Because I never use it. So it depends what you mean by fluency. If you mean to know everything in a language, then I don't think anybody can actually be fluent. My second point is that I think there's a difference between oral fluency and reading fluency. When you read a book, you do need to know a lot more vocabulary. I mean, it depends on what you're reading. If you're reading a children's book, then maybe not so much. I haven't really done much reading in different languages, I must confess. I've only read novels in French and some in Spanish, and I've tended to read easy stuff. I did try to read Gabriel Garcia Marquez in Spanish, but that was really difficult for me, so I didn't really pursue that. But I read things like Jules Verne and that kind of thing in French, which is aimed at teenagers, so it wasn't too bad. But when it comes to oral, fluency, for me it's much easier to be fluent orally than it is reading and writing. So, what do you think of fluency? Do you think you're fluent in any of the languages you speak? So my point number 3 is going to be that perception from a person who's listening into a conversation who doesn't speak that language, doesn't know what level of the language you're speaking. So for me, when I was speaking Italian, for example, I was speaking it as a second language, and so was the Romanian lady. So we weren't using huge, vocabulary and idioms and expressions that a native Italian person might use. And the same for when I was speaking Mandarin with the Mandarin speaker. Okay, Mandarin is her first language, but she probably stepped down a level to come to my level of of Mandarin speaking, because I understood everything she said, and she understood everything I said, which was fantastic. But I know she wasn't speaking advanced Mandarin. So it's all to do with perception, I think. It's all to do with the window that you see or you hear that language being spoken, is, whether you feel it's fluent or not. So for me, I mean, I don't really mind having a label attached to me. If you want to say I'm fluent in any language, I don't mind. But I just want to say that that's the case sometimes. You don't always have a huge amount of that language to be able to speak it, or you don't have to have it. So my point number 4 is that I think polyglots or multilingual people tend to develop a technique whereby they can, or we can, I should say, start using a language early on, because we use common vocabulary, common phrases, and we use ways of asking questions. So, for example, if I don't know what a word is, I'll just speak in the language, and then I'll say, how do you say, and then add it to the sentence, and that way I feel like I learn more from the other person, and there's more interchange, and it stops the conversation going back to English or another language. So that's how I kind of try to maintain a conversation and keep it in the language. And sometimes as well, what I do is, if I'm not very good in, if I stumble in a language, I don't feel very fluent, I tend to try to carry on speaking in that language, and hopefully the other person's going to help me get through. But sometimes it can be a bit tedious, if it's too much of a block and you haven't reached that level yet. So that's me on fluency, really. Any comments, anything you think that about fluency? I'd be grateful to hear your ideas on it. So thanks very much for watching, and hope to see you soon.